Hey folks, before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors. The first is IDLE Academy. IDLE is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login. Check out all the details at www.idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. So let's bring on the introduction music and let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest podcast you're going to hear today. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm an assistant director of instructional design, an author, blogger, podcaster, and overall a learning nerd. And my purpose is to be able to help you to learn more about instructional design and designing meaningful, relevant, and interesting kinds of learning experiences. And of course, you can find all of the resources that I have for you over at drlukehobson.com. Where do you want to go on vacation? My wife asked me. We could go see the Grand Canyon, take a cruise, or I guess we could go to Disney World since you've never been. The next few moments in my head were filled with every Super Bowl winning quarterback saying that they're going to Disney World. And the inner child in me has always wanted to go to Disney World, but it just never happened. So at 36, here I am going to the mouse's house. Before our trip, I watched several Walt Disney documentaries on Disney+, and it was clear that Disney was no ordinary human. I don't think I need to list his incredible ideas because your childhood was most likely filled with them. The one thing that I did not know about, though, was his emphasis on the guest experience. He wanted everything to be perfect, absolutely perfect. One can make an argument that he was an early pioneer on user experience. This didn't exist when he was alive, but Disney's approach to creating immersive, detail-oriented experiences for his audience laid a foundation for UX principles used today. And from these principles, we can certainly draw a line designing learning experiences, hence the whole point of today's episode. And while I thoroughly enjoyed my vacation, my brain kept on seeing the intentionality behind the designs. And I thought that I would share with you what I connected into our instructional design world. It's a reminder that if these ideas are good enough for the happiest place on earth, we should be paying attention to them. So on today's episode, I want to highlight some of these features, and hopefully it helps you out with thinking about designing your next learning experience. The first talking point is immersion. Walt Disney was obsessed with crafting immersive environments, particularly in Disneyland, which was created first before Disney World. Every detail was carefully crafted to draw visitors into a story, making them feel like they were part of the worlds he created. In the early days of Disneyland, Disney noticed something that disturbed the magic he wanted guests to feel. A cowboy from Frontierland was just seen casually walking through Tomorrowland. This simple idea broke the sense of immersion that he was aiming to create, and as guests saw the characters and cast members out of place, it reminded them that Disneyland was, in fact, not a real magical world, but a manufactured one. This encounter led Disney to develop a solution that would maintain the magic and seamlessness he envisioned for future parks. When designing Walt Disney World in Florida, he planned an elaborate network of underground tunnels known as utilidors, short for utility corridors, to allow cast members to move from one area to another without being seen by guests. These utilidors were designed so that cast members, supplies, and even trash could be transported discreetly, ensuring that the guests never encountered anything that would disrupt the park's illusion. It's not just Walt Disney who took this seriously, though. All cast members believe in the significance of immersion. And I learned about this in the most socially awkward possible way. At Disney World, you'll see cast members wearing green shirts who are professional photographers. If you buy the photo package, you can have them take your picture at any time without trying to take pictures with your phone. All we need to be able to do is to scan your type of fast pass watch that you get to be able to use as your ticket into places, and immediately the pictures they take go right into the app that you have on your phone. Really, it's a genius idea, and it was awesome to be able to have this. Well, anyway, I went up to one of the photographers and asked if she could take our picture, and she looked at me, puzzled. She's like, "Picture? I don't know what that means." And dumbfounded, I responded like, "A picture? You're a photographer? ... And she looked at me and replied, "Don't you mean a holoscan?" And I stared blankly, thinking, what the heck is a holoscan? And I asked her to repeat herself 3 times because it still didn't sink in. And then finally, it kind of dawned upon me where it's like, Luke, you are in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Pictures don't exist. But a holoscan, well, that does exist. Immersion might not be talked about as much within the instructional design field, but it certainly does apply in a few different settings. If you are creating a 12-week-long course and week 4 is radically different compared to week 7, it's not going to feel connected and cohesive. In a sense, this takes the learners out of the experience and they're trying to figure out why the components are jumbled all together. If you were creating a VR training and the setting was in the learner's workplace, it would need to match real-world expectations. The characters in the virtual world would need to speak like actual normal people, not like robots. Or I guess I should now say like AI, and maybe that will be the new saying for going forwards. There would need to be freedom of choice as well and have consequences of actions. Not every decision is going to end in a perfect way because that's the real world. If we want to keep learners' attention, we have to stay in this immersive type of a learning environment. The next thing I noticed was storytelling. Disney understood the emotional engagement that keeps the audience invested. He structured everything from movies to theme parks around storytelling, creating experiences that resonated with people on a deeper level. I was surprised to learn how deeply Disney cared about edutainment, education meeting entertainment. When I think of Disney, I think of Toy Story, I think of Lion King, Mickey Mouse. I don't think education. While he wanted his parks to be entertaining, he was deeply invested in making them educational. It was extremely important to him. Disney's original vision for Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, was deeply rooted in edutainment. He imagined it as a living, educational showcase where people could learn about future technology, urban design, and sustainable living. Though Epcot ultimately evolved into a theme park after his death, it retained his focus on learning and innovation through entertaining experiences, such as the pavilions that showcase science, technology, and cultures from around the world. When you go into Epcot, you will be greeted by Spaceship Earth, the gigantic golf ball-looking sphere that's near the entrance, by the way. That's Epcot. This ride takes visitors through a history of human communication, blending historical education with immersive entertainment. During the ride, you're asked about a series of questions about what's important to you and your future. And after a few moments, you'll have a customized video of your future and you can interact with several games and activities. And it's mentioned several times that these choices are what makes you uniquely you. What was so compelling with every attraction was how quickly I was sucked into the story. I wanted to know more about the characters, their backgrounds, and what around them was happening. Even walking into the Hall of Presidents, one of the original attractions from the 70s, still captured my attention. Being able to hear President Lincoln's speech in its entirety was extremely captivating. Yes, it was an animatronic, but I felt it was lifelike, is that he was really standing in front of me. And as the jumbo screens displayed the most iconic moments in American history, I left with a strong sense of patriotism. Storytelling is a critical component of learning and naturally instructional design. How we shape and mold the stories that students will be experiencing bring life to the learning experience. Case studies and scenario-based problems immediately come to mind when thinking of stories, by the way. When written correctly, these can be transformative for the students. It can take them into their imaginations and vividly think about what it would be like to be in the shoes of the hypothetical character that you designed. When written poorly, like naming your places of work ABC Company, or every fictitious character in the scenario is named Bob, no offense to Bob, but these can be seen as throwaway assignments. The level of care and attention it's not there. And learners and students, well, they sure do notice if you don't put as much attention to detail as you should. And you can hear me rant much more about this if you want to listen to the podcast episode on my top 3 instructional design pet peeves. Next is accessibility. In higher education and online learning in general, accessibility still isn't prioritized enough. Every time we are moving in the right direction, I'll read an article from Inside Higher Ed that makes me feel like I'm still living in 2004. At Disney World, though, this is completely flipped on its head. Accessibility features aren't just seen as some nice to have or an optional add-on, they are clearly taken into consideration first. It's the way that things should be. Let's talk about a few examples of what I saw. The clearest was with multiple formats for content. Disney World offers visual aids, audio descriptions, and braille maps for guests with visual impairments. Every piece of audio from the rides to the buses had closed captioning. For guests who have hearing impairments, they even offer sign language interpretation for attractions and shows. Another example was with adaptive technology. Everything at Disney World was accessible for guests with wheelchairs. I know that this is obviously the law, but it was nice to see that the ride vehicles could accommodate these people without requiring extra levels of effort. It was seamless. It was natural. And speaking of rides, by the way, Disney World has options for those with developmental disorders who are unable to wait in line to make reservations ahead of time. They are seriously considering all people, all backgrounds, for thinking about their rides, and once again, for it being entertaining, for it being seamless, and for being easy and enjoyable. All of this is to say that I would love to see our design world move more into this direction. Closed captioning and transcripts are the minimum. We should place a higher emphasis on sensory overload. Being able to provide additional flexible options to meet the needs of all students, that should be our goal as educators. One thing that I want to do personally with my designs is to hire those with impairments and have them go through the designs and to be able to provide feedback on how to make improvements. Companies do this when testing out products, is that before they go into market, they hire these folks to be able to come in and really scrutinize everything. And I would love to be able to bring this attention of detail to courses inside of higher education. It's not a standard, at least to the best of my knowledge, but we absolutely should be considering doing this much more. Web content accessibility guidelines is a standard if you want to read more, and I'll put some links down below inside of the show notes for you to read more about this if you want to be able to do so. But also, Dr. Nicole Latois has a new accessibility course that's being offered through Instructional Design Institute that I know you're going to benefit from it. She has certainly taught me a thing or two with going above and beyond pertaining to accessibility, and I'm sure it's going to help out you and your future designs too. So once again, go down to the show notes, check out these links. It will definitely help you out and to be able to learn a bit more. And lastly, it's a combination of a few things, but they're all relevant, so I'm going to put them all together, which is prototyping, iterative design, and feedback. Walt Disney treated Disneyland as a sort of prototype for future parks, and he was known to walk around, observe guests, and make real-time notes on what worked and what didn't. He used guest reactions as feedback to improve the park, essentially. For instance, Disney would note where people tended to gather, which paths they took, and how they responded to different attractions. He even famously would grab an order to go, eat along the way while walking, and wherever he finished eating, he said a trash can needs to be placed in this exact spot. It's not just about prototyping, though. Disney Imagineers use feedback loops extensively in designing animatronics and ride experiences. For example, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride has undergone several updates over the years, including adding elements from the popular film series, like Captain Jack Sparrow is now casually there in a few places. These changes often come from guest feedback and the need to keep the attraction relevant and engaging. Disney's animatronic technology itself has even evolved based around these loops. When certain animatronics didn't achieve a desired level of realism or broke immersion for guests, Disney invested in advancements like the A1000 animatronics, which are smoother and more lifelike. And of course, we can't forget about feedback. Disney is renowned for its use of data, collecting detailed feedback from guests through post-visit surveys. These surveys cover a wide range of topics from ride satisfaction to food quality and overall park experience. Analyzing this data helps Disney understand which experiences are meeting guest expectations and which aren't, allowing them to prioritize future projects and updates. For example, if guests consistently report issues with a specific attraction, well, that's the one that's going to be prioritized in order to go through a type of a new update. Similarly, if guests experience enthusiasm for a certain experience, something truly wows them, Disney might expand that or create more attractions in that style. It's also been interesting to hear too about mixed guest feedback. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos recently where people are either thrilled with some changes or they absolutely hate them and they don't want them to happen. An example is rebranding of Splash Mountain or the Disney Fast Passes or the Lightning Lanes. You can look up any of those with very mixed feedback from people. All of this is to say that instructional designers absolutely follow these same principles. Building out a prototype of a course or a training and actively seeking out feedback before it goes live is crucial. It's during these moments when we learn about how to improve the design and to reconsider all options. Feedback and data from a designer is invaluable. It's why I am a firm believer in creating pilot versions of learning experiences before they're launched to the masses. If you have ever taken my courses before or have heard me give a talk, you have heard me say it by now, but there is no such thing as a perfect course. There is always something that we can do to be able to improve the designs, and of course, this comes from more feedback. I really didn't think that going to Disney World, by the way, for a destination vacation spot would lead to recording this podcast episode or writing the blog that goes with it. But I'm sure glad that we went. It was quite the experience, and I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to go back. But tell me, is there any other organization that you can think of as far as for drawing inspiration for instructional designers to be able to learn from? I would love to hear more. So please feel free to let me know either on LinkedIn. You can always write to me as well via email, luke@drlukehobson.com. And of course, you can just directly comment on this post as well if you want to be able to do that. If you would be so kind, be sure to leave this podcast a review wherever you are listening. Those are always appreciated and they are always welcomed. And by the way, if you haven't seen my latest YouTube video, go check it out, about my 5 different ways on how to be able to re-engage with SMEs who have been ghosting you. It's actually, this might be the shortest video I've ever produced. It's almost exactly 10 minutes, which is, for me, pretty short. So go check out that video. I hope you enjoyed that one. Hope you learned a thing or two about how to be able to collaborate with SMEs in a different type of way when you are really stuck and you need to be able to pull some emergency levers. And hey folks, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.